So, what are we doing here? Let me tell you first who I am, who we are, what we do, why we're doing it. Then we can delve into the subject matter. My name is Ziad Abdelnour. I'm President and CEO of Black Hawk Partners, which is a family office. And I'm chairman and founder of the Financial Policy Council, a nonprofit 501c3 that was created back in July 4, 2011. So that's 13 years ago. Note, July 4, Independence Day. By coincidence. We're a nonprofit. We have 300,000 followers on social media. We have a board of 8 people, a core membership of 25 hardcore activists. And we've been really pounding for the last 13 years, promoting freedom, wealth creation, patriotism, and all those issues. We're here to do one thing only. We're here to seek the truth, not all the bullshit, the propaganda you hear in the media. We are neither on the right nor on the left. We're not a political organization. We're here to provide solutions because both the right and the left make a lot of mistakes. We're here to provide solutions to very thorny economic and other problems, whether in every asset class you can imagine: healthcare, fintech, private equity, real estate, oil and gas, energy, everything. We're not academics, we're not professors, we're not theoreticians or anything like that. Every single one of us is a businessman with skin in the game, activist. So we're a group of businessmen, accomplished business people in every single asset class. When we provide solutions to problems, we've been there. This is not theory. This is not some obnoxious professor at Harvard Business School who tells you this is how it is. He gets $400,000 a year and he pontificates like if he knows shit. He knows nothing. We are risk takers. We've been through that. We've done it. The only way you succeed is by executing, being an operator, having skin in the game. All the rest, it's pontification, bullshit, which most of the people believe. All the economists out there, 19 out of the 20, all what they've predicted is wrong. From Paul Kruger down, they're always wrong. They want attention. They're attention seekers. They've done nothing. They've created nothing. It's all bullshit theory. We do not mince our words. We call the bullshit bullshit. We're not going to be canceled. We're not going to be we cannot be bought and sold. And this is why when we have 80 corporate sponsors, it's done on purpose because we don't want to have an 800-pound pack or gorilla, whether Elon Musk or George Soros, dictating to us what we should say, what we should do. And we don't want any member of the media to tell us, because they know shit, that's for sure, what to do. And I don't care if they think that saying shit is not politically correct. I don't care too. We can say fuck too. The key is to get the truth out. The key is to get the truth out. Whether they're offended or not, I don't give a rat's ass if they're offended or not. This is not about feelings and offending people. Our country is fucked, is bankrupt, $35 trillion in debt. We don't know how to resolve this. Wars all over the world, giving billions of dollars to this piece of shit called Ukraine, or all this stuff is useless, while our people are dying on the streets. Go and look at San Francisco. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. We have to help them. This is no help. This foreign aid bullshit is the way for the politicians to fill their pockets. When they give $100 billion to Ukraine, Zelensky keeps 5 or 10, it's kicked back to the politicians who gave the money. That's how Nancy Pelosi is a net worth of $500 million when her salary is $175,000 a year. AOC, every single politician, they have made this money except Trump because this is how they make the money. They want to keep the war machine open. They want to get the kickbacks and fill them in their pockets. Nobody's saying that. Nobody dares saying that because they're afraid of being fucking canceled. It's time for us to wake the fuck up. Enough. They're happy, oh, everything is fine. Nothing is fine. Everything is fucked up. And if you vote for Kamala Harris, you're a fucking moron. And if you don't like it, you can leave this room. I don't care. I'm not here to make you feel happy or good. I'm here to wake you up. We're here to inspire you, to empower you, to make fuck you money, to do the things right, and not to be afraid of anyone. Enough is enough. I say it every time and people still fall back in their stupidity. Enough being stupid. I have no agenda, believe me. I'm not running for office. I don't want to run for office. I don't want to do shit. All what I want is create as many millionaires and billionaires as possible to tell the government, go fuck off. That's all what I want. Stop being afraid of saying things that can offend people. All those people offended is to the 1-2%. We're going to change the whole world because we're offending 1-2% of the people? Oh, did I offend your feelings? I'm going to sue you too. Once we realize this and wake up and put our money where our mouth is and fight like death to our rights, we're going to gain back this country. I'm a legal immigrant. I'm a successful legal immigrant. I made it against all odds, against all everything. They couldn't even pronounce my name when I came. Now they read my fucking books. That's the best revenge. You can't pronounce my name, bitch. Now read my books. This is success. When I came here, the sky was the limit. It was on the Reagan, Wall Street, greed is good, the sky is the limit, you can do whatever you want. You're an American, you're special. Today is the age of diminished expectations. You have to shut the fuck up, put your mask, watch TV, don't dissent, obey, and don't say a word. And you have to be happy that you have a roof on top of your head. This is not my ambition, is to have a fucking roof on top of my head. No. The sky is the limit. Where is the American dream? Where is the American spirit? Where is the right to fight? Where is it? I know no organization will speak like this because they're afraid of being canceled, because they're bought and sold right and left, because they lost, they don't have any fucking balls left. I don't give a shit. This is going to be on video, on YouTube. Let them swallow it. Talking about healthcare. So this is the kind of events we do. We deal with mavericks. All these people have skin in the game. All these people are high achievers, are entrepreneurs. There's not one professor, academic bullshit guy from this stupid Harvard Business School, liberal college. None. We don't believe what they say. They don't know what they're saying. That's very simple. This concept of they are the elite my ass. They're not any elite. I speak 5 languages. I have 3 passports. I went to Wharton and Harvard, and I don't call myself elite. They're elite for what? Because their name is like some fucking wasp who think they are the chosen people. We have to rebel. This is time for rebellion. This is time for a revolution. I was watching the other day on Amazon.com the story of our founding fathers, and how they did and what they did. This is time to gain back our country. This is more important than any seminar. We're not here to do seminars. This is not Club Med. This is not a social club where we're doing this. This is a group of activists, successful, who want to be even more successful, who want to rock the boat, not only rock the boat, sink the fucking boat and build a new one for the benefit of ourselves, our kids, our grandkids. So enough, time to wake the fuck up. This is a movement. This is not an organization. And there's nobody like us. And I know this for a fact. So you either adapt and grow with us and benefit tremendously, as a lot of people did, and you will be a witness, or, go back to your corner and keep doing the same shit again and again. And nothing will happen. And when your grandkids grow up, they're going to ask you, what have you done? Nothing. The worst thing in your life is to say, basically, I should have done this when I was younger. Remember this. And the best thing is to say, God, I didn't imagine I had the balls to do something like that. Dare, dream, push hard, don't listen to them. So what we do, every now and then, is an event focusing on one specific asset class. And we discuss all the problems and all the issues in that asset class. And we bring in experts to provide solutions. We're here to provide solutions. We're not here to attack the right or the left. That's a waste of time. These are the problems, these are the solutions. This is what the council is all about. First, I would like to thank our strategic partners, Vladimir Lunegov from mBank, for having provided us with tremendous support, financially, morally, everything. Vlad, please stand up. Second, I would like to welcome to the board 2 new board members who have been instrumental in bringing us where we are today and who are actually on the panel, Laurence and Martin Jones. Please stand up. Third, I would like to welcome on board 2 new members of the Project Liberty team, George Shamoun and Ray Laguerre. Please stand up.
Ray Laguerre is in Ghana, Africa, doing some relief work with neonatal infant CPAP right now, so he couldn't be here.
You will see him next time. So the subject to be today is healthcare. Our system is so fucked up like you cannot imagine. They hide for you everything, making you believe that it's okay, it's manageable. Nothing is manageable. We have reached a point of no return. And I will have the experts tell you about it. It's not coming from, I'm not biased. I'm not a healthcare expert, but I'm a very astute businessman and I know what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. Even investing in healthcare today doesn't make any sense unless you're going after specific niches. So the goal here, at the end of the day, it's not for you to say, oh, it was a good presentation. Fuck that. It's for you to say, wow, I've learned something today. I have changed something today. If we don't create the wow statement on your part, we have failed. We're not here to make people be comfortable. We're here to push your comfort zone and to realize what's at stake and what can be done about it by providing you with solutions. So today we have on the panel 4 experts in the healthcare industry, 4 doctors. These people all have skin in the game. They know what risk is. They know how to execute. And these are the 3 criteria I follow when investing in companies or deals. You have to be an operator with a track record who knows how to execute and who have skin in the game. And these are the kind of panelists we bring on board. Not some professor here or economist there. They know shit. So I'm going to have each one of the panelists introduce himself, 2 minutes. Then we can start into the Q&A. I have some questions as a moderator to ask the panelists. Then I'll leave it up to you guys to ask them the question. This is a very interactive rapport. It's not just me and them, you and them too. If you have any questions, as long as it's a question, not a comment, and there is no stupid questions. We're wide open to every question you want, because we want you to get out of here having really learned something, maybe even a little thing that's going to change the course of your life, of your activities. We want you to be wealthy, powerful, opinionated, rich, challenging the government, challenging any idiot who tells you you're wrong, especially members of the media who know nothing, absolutely nothing. This is war. This is not a walk in the park. This is not another social event where people come in, yeah, good, how was your day today? How was your week? Did you do that? This is bullshit. This is not Club Med here. This is a bunch of hardcore activists, killers. And if you're not part of this, if you feel uncomfortable, please leave. We're here for that. This is the intent. And the more we grow our movement of people like this, the more powerful and influential we're going to become. I want you to have influence. I want you to have power. I want your word to mean something. I want you to live by a word. I will die with my principles. I don't give a fuck. At least it's a life worth living. Enough of my speech. Let's start with Martin Jones. Please, Martin. 2 minutes about yourself.
I don't want to spend 2 minutes talking about myself. I don't find myself that interesting, actually. Neither does anybody that knows me. So, Martin Johns, I am an internal medicine pediatrician. I've been practicing for almost 20 years. I am a very disgruntled physician. I am very pissed off and angry at the corporate structure of healthcare. I have some members of my group in the audience who are also disgruntled folks in healthcare right now. We wanted to be in healthcare to save people. We wanted to help to make a difference. And over the last 20 years, I've certainly seen the erosion of what is good healthcare and good patient care. So I'm here to show you how much of a disruptor I am and to share some of the things that I've discovered over time. And I'm very happy to be there. Thank you very much.
I'm much more interesting than that. I may spend more than an extra minute.
He just told me he wasn't going to spend 2 minutes talking about it.
Well, I'm Greg Laurence. I'm a physician, and all my exes live in Texas. And as the song says, I hang my hat in Tennessee. So I went to medical school, went to Baylor in the great state of Texas, currently in Memphis, Tennessee. And like my friend Omar next to me, had the pleasure of being able to have both surgical training and primary care training. And we've been both through the path of being in academia. And so we were teachers. We taught other physicians how to be good doctors and surgeons. And we lived in the system enough to know how we needed to change the system for ourselves and for our patients. So we're going to be very interested in talking to you guys about what we've learned over these years. And we at the FPC really want to make sure that everyone knows that we have the answers. On this panel, you'll never find another set of doctors that more knows the answers that we have to the system. We know the answers. It'll take more than just the four of us to make those changes, but we know the answers that need to be done because we've been in the system. So this is more of an intimate gathering. We're not trying to appeal to become the changers tonight, but as friends, as family, you guys are going to hear some things that are going to change your lives and potentially change your businesses.
And by the way, before I start with Omar, there was a video of this. On the average, each one of our videos is watched by 30,000 viewers. So it's not like we're talking to 50 people here and the message will stay here. The message will go all over the internet, all over the world, and people will get the message. And that's what it is. And this is just the beginning, because we're launching soon a campaign with a top-notch digital agency that's going to promote us even much more on social media, by email, by everything, where people are going to be receiving 100,000 emails a week. So this is total obliteration and domination of the space. This is totally brainwashing all the stupid kids who have embraced socialism, who are relying on the government, who are relying on handouts to wake the fuck up and change the course of their lives. This is what we want. We want change, major radical change. When you have cancer, you don't cure it with Band-Aid, you cure it with curing the cancer, operating on the cancer. We are gonna operate on this shit. Make it clear to them. Take note of this. This is a revolution we're conducting. Go ahead, Omar.
Thanks. Like my friend Ziad, I'm Lebanese as well, only I'm not a terrorist.
Yeah?
I think we all are, right, George?
Look, okay, just for the record and for the video, the biggest terrorist in the world is the CIA.
Yeah.
Just for your information.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's make it clear here about some mullahs, some Arab shit, or some Iranian shit. They invented terrorism, the CIA, okay? Let it on the record. Go ahead.
All right, so I started off actually in the ministry, seminary, and then got ordained, and then also spent a few years in musical training, opera and classical trumpet. But let's shift to medicine. Spent about a decade and a half in the U.S. Army in the Special Operations side as a flight surgeon and diving medical officer in the U.S. Special Forces and the Green Berets. So really cut my teeth there in terms of austere medicine and looking at various medical organizations throughout the world, from Mongolia, Panama, back to the United States. Also got my MD in Memphis and got double boarded in OBGYN, specializing in pelvic reconstructive surgery, and also in family medicine with some sports medicine thrown in there as well. Went back, got sick of how medicine was being run because had been in everything. I worked for Pfizer down the street for a few years. Worked for for-profit institutions like HCA, and then also nonprofits and the military. And finally realized that medicine was broken, slow learner, and went back and got an MBA from Vanderbilt because I wanted to know more about economics and have a seat at the table, because they would always say, you don't really know much, you're a doctor, just practice medicine, let us manage the business. But I wanted to be able to speak the same language. So that's where we are. For the past 15 years or so, I've been designing a regenerative process where we basically take somebody from soup to nuts and dig as deep as possible, go through 12 different systems over 2 years, and don't leave any stone unturned. And I can't wait to tell you guys about it. It's pretty cool.
My name is DelCastillo. I actually went to school with Dr. Johns. And so from that perspective, I grew up in Toronto, love skiing, love snowboarding, so I love keeping active. And then what happened was my grandmother ended up having kidney cancer. So that's why I wanted to go into medicine. So we did IMPs at Geisinger in Pennsylvania, and then I kind of, like what Dr. Johns did too, was kind of tired of how medicine was going. And so I wanted to understand. I also got my MBA at George Washington. So from that perspective, I wanted to know what other countries were actually doing with their healthcare systems. Why aren't we adapting them, since, we're at, 4.5 trillion in debt? I mean, it's insane. And that's 20% of our GDP? That doesn't make sense. So what I learned from that, I also leveraged local communities. So I went back to Hopkins and I got my population health certification. So that's kind of where I want to make a difference in local communities, kind of going upstream rather than downstream, figuring out how we can do preventative medicine better. That's me.
Thank you very much, Joe. So the first question that comes to mind, and this is addressed to all four of you gentlemen, it's all about freedom. How can we safeguard medical freedom moving forward, ensuring that future public health policies respect patient autonomy rather than coercive government mandates? So it's really a balance between this, the freedom, and playing with the government, and be as direct, as practical as you can. No need to sugarcoat anything. This is on the record. Thank you.
We saw this really brought to light over the past few years during the pandemic when the government, both federal and state and local governments, were mandating masking, mandating isolation, mandating immunizations, and people were losing their jobs over refusal to immunize or mask. And now we see the same thing that many of us were saying at the time, that a shot that was rushed to market, the first of its kind, that had some potentially serious complications at the time. Now we're seeing people, an increased risk, increased rate of dying. We work in the emergency room, saw a tremendously increased rate of pulmonary emboli, cardiac infarctions, things like that. And now also with our youth, especially males in the teenage years with myocarditis and other things. So I think many of us are now saying, are being proven right. So what do we do? I mean, we have to, let me just tell you a quick story. I was working in the ER. One of my colleagues was a member of the Tennessee State Medical Board of Examiners. I got cornered one day, and I'm pretty prolific on social media and also have been on national media and international media speaking against these things, Huckabee and some other things, and Fox. And one day she came up to me and said, just want to let you know we're watching you. And I was like, what does that mean? She said, you just need to be very careful. So essentially I took it as a threat because doctors were not only being imprisoned, like Simone Gold, whatever her name is, but also having their licenses revoked, having their board certifications revoked. Several medical organizations like the American Academy for Family Physicians, the American Board of OBGYN, both put up on their websites, if you are giving misinformation, you could have your board certification yanked. Who's defining what misinformation is? Of course, it's the other side of the fence, right? So we have to be able to stand up without fear. We have to be able to develop things that are outside of the usual networks. We can't be reliant on the establishment of board certification, hospital privileging, and things like that. We have to be able to engage the market without the ties to traditional medicine like we are doing here. So we have the freedom to stand for truth, to stand for our patients, and really push good medicine.
Well, there's no hotter topic than medical freedom. And you guys, where you're sitting, may not fully understand it. We feel it. And let me describe it a little bit. Your average doc, just think about your newly trained, relatively unsophisticated, wet behind the ears doctor, goes into medicine and realizes that the game is cooked. Your brain, your thinking, your judgment doesn't matter. Every insurance code pushes you the way you're going to go. They either pay you or don't pay you, and sometimes they even use the right code and they can just not pay you and then ask for it back. The medical boards, as Omar mentioned, are powered with a certain type of a mindset that thinks a certain way, and they sort of think groupthink. Your insurance companies and the codes and the medical boards, and we just are really sort of in straitjackets. And so all these guys up here are still a little bit in the system, so they're very aware of it. They could tell you stories that would blow you away. I got out of it 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I decided I wasn't going to have another relationship with an insurance company, and it has been unbelievably, I'm in the free zone of medicine. And none of you guys look like my patients. I like patients that are a mess, that the specialists have given up on. They have a problem list 10 long, and those are the ones that I want, because what we're really trying to do is prove that we can take care of everybody with these new technologies. And new technologies only happen if you're in the free zone. And these guys will tell you about their frustrations. They are many, and I've got frustrations too. but my brain just feeds off the fact that I can look at my patient and say, I'm going to do the right thing for you.
So I wish I were as going commando as Greg actually in the free zone at this point. I'm still somewhat tied to corporate medicine, but I will tell you that two aspects of the freedom. First, as far as providers, I say no a lot more than most people do. A lot of these corporate medicine groups will run things on metrics. So they'll say someone comes in, if they have a temperature that's elevated, if they're a little bit, they have a respiration rate that's high, they'll claim that patient is septic. That patient then gets a variety of tests and procedures that are most of the time unnecessary. And when clinicians such as myself and Dr. Ruffino is in the group, will question that and say, this patient is not septic. I'm not running all these tests on this patient. They'll threaten us to say, you keep doing that and we won't put you on the schedule anymore. And it actually happened to me in Florida. The funny thing is they did take me off the schedule and they call me to cover shifts. So it's a very strange, interesting phenomenon. But the point is, education for those in the room that ties over into what I'm talking about, understand what happens in healthcare. When you go into the emergency room, when you go in to be seen, you don't have to have every test in the world to prove or disprove what's going on. A lot of that is just to raise money for those corporations, to blanket you with different metric systems like sepsis, stroke, and trauma when they're unnecessary. The other piece of freedom is when you actually find a provider that you trust and you believe in, ask questions. Understand about your health. What are the standards of care? What's necessary? What isn't necessary? I mean, from things all the way to getting PSAs and rectal exams for men, and as far as the whole breast cancer and ovarian cancer screening for women. I mean, freedom is an extremely important piece to medicine, and I would say those are two areas to focus on.
And Joe is a population guy, so we take care of patients every day. And Joe also thinks about how to produce solutions for bigger populations. So as far as medical freedom goes, Joe, how do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, from the population health perspective, I want to go back into communities. I mean, you have, they have Little Italy here, or they have Little China, or, Koreatown, or whatever have you. I mean, if you're looking at that, what, cultural aspects can you take from that and then bring back that into medicine? I mean, I have patients who actually come in where family members are like, please don't tell my mom, she's Korean, that goes against our religion. I mean, there's certain things that you can do to kind of open up and make everything more transparent. From going into, I did a project in Baltimore, and what we did was we actually went and got community health workers. We went into local salons, we went to local barbershops and said, why aren't you guys getting your health checks? Why aren't you guys getting vaccines? Why aren't you guys getting cancer checks? I mean, they were just afraid of what the physician or what regulations they would be going against. So all these guys up here are saying it's best to be nice and transparent, help them understand, this is the reasons why we're doing things. This is the reasons, this is what's going to get paid for. This is what's not. So it's important to be very transparent.
Okay. I want to add something here before we move to the second question. A lot of people take the doctors for gods. 99% of them know shit. They have been taught like this in some medical school, and they are basically regurgitating that. You know how many people died in hospitals? If you want to die, go to a hospital. Look at the COVID and the vaccine and the ventilator and all the shit stories. So with all due respect to these guys are different because they don't work mostly within the corporate establishment that have to dictate to them what they have to say. You go to the doctor, you have to wait an hour to see this idiot. He treats you like shit. He stays with you 5 minutes, gives you a decision, and says, okay, doctor, this is it. This submission, this act of, they are gods, you have to get it out of your system. Challenge them, ask them questions. The guy works for you, you don't work for him. You're the client. People forget this. They take them like God, yes, doctor. Who the fuck are you? I'm paying you. You work for me. So you listen. You give me your time. They let you wait an hour. How much do you make in an hour? I make 100 times more than you in an hour. So my hour is much more valuable than yours. And I said this specifically to doctors. Nobody challenges them. They are the ultimate authority. Authority what? Wake the fuck up. I mean, people are so much led. A politician said this, a lawyer said that, a doctor said this. What about you? What about your individuality? This forum is all about freedom, not just healthcare, but all across the board. You have to develop your own cash flow, your own thing to be independent and to challenge everybody, because all these guys work for you. The politicians work for me. When a politician comes and asks me for money, oh, I'm a big shot, you know, I'm doing a fundraiser, I'm asking $5,000 from each. And what the fuck did you do for me, Mr. Republican? You didn't even have the balls or the spine to stand on a resolution that I wanted. Well, I want my money? You're gonna kiss my ass to have my money. I literally tell them this, literally. That you have to push back. Stop taking the establishment as the authority. They're not the authority. They make you believe they are the authority. You are the authority if you work in unison. We're here to empower people to start challenging the establishment. You know how I attack the establishment? I don't go and say, oh my God, I'm the victim, look what they did. This is bullshit. Or express themselves on social media. I receive tons of text and email from people saying, oh, we are the victims. No. What you do is that you start writing yourself blogs, articles, things that are gonna piss them off without really crossing the line. You start asking questions. This is what this guy did. Do you think it's fair? This is what that guy did. Do you think it's equitable? Do you think it helps? Let the reader answer these questions. You have to undermine their credibility. This is how you win war. You know, the guys who wins war, business is war. The guy who wins war, I'm sorry, but this is extremely important and related to what you guys want to say. The guys who win war is not the guys who has the most money. No. It's not the guy who has the most, who's the smartest. No. A lot of smart people, a lot of guys with money. It doesn't mean that they win. The guy who wins is the guy who can gather intelligence, information, second to none, and work on this information. Look at this idiot Bush. We spent $6 trillion, lost 5,000 lives to go after Iraq, a guy who didn't even have weapons of mass destruction. We destroyed this country because he had the wrong intel. The same thing applies in business. The same thing applies in medicine. When the guy tells you he's an expert on this, challenge him, double opinion, etc. This is not, they don't have, nobody has the answer. Nobody. The answer is the guy who seeks and gets the right intelligence. You may not have a degree, but you have gotten the right intelligence. Do you think all these guys who became billionaires, Zuckerberg, Gates, Larry Ellison, they were the smartest? No. They were the richest, they didn't have a dime. That's the question of smart. It's a question that they gathered intelligence that nobody had and went and acted upon it. And they fucked everybody, even the richest, even the most powerful. And this thing applies in medicine, in business, in everything. Freedom, money is all about freedom. If you don't acquire freedom, you have nothing. You are a slave. We move to the next question. Now, many argue that simply identifying problems isn't enough. Can each one of you please share specific tangible actions you're taking to challenge the status quo and disrupt entrenched systems that perpetuate injustice?
Can I jump in on this one? See if I can match Ziad's zeal here. You need three things, and what he's saying is exactly right. You got to have a doctor in the system because the system delivers something to you. Question the system always. You need to have a doc out of the system who will give you real information, who will talk to you, and you need to use your AI. In other words, you need to do your own research, like Ziad is saying. But let me just emphasize something. We figured out during COVID, if we didn't already know it, that the whole peer review review system to clinical trials is rigged. It is rigged. These are for-profit journals. They've been caught with their pants down.
Yep.
And AI can think around that sometimes, but you have to use some common sense because sometimes even with them doing corrupt manipulation of data and something called Q hacking, they still, if you look at the words, it'll tell you that cancer therapy on average gives an extra month of life. Who would do that? What person would go into cancer therapy knowing that the average patient may die earlier, may die later, but on the average lives an extra 4 weeks? That's what our system gives you all the time. In small molecule medicine is what we're talking about. The old school way of doing medicine is what we want to leave behind, because there's technologies now that beat the classic way of thinking about it. But you guys should just know, get a doctor in the system, get a doctor out of the system. It's going to cost you some money. And if you own your own company, try to figure out a way not to pay Blue Cross Blue Shield or Aetna or Cigna for that plastic card, which gives you nothing. Try to give your C-suite folks, try to give your employees that you care about some way, give them some cash in their pocket so they can actually seek the care of somebody that's not in on the fix.
What do you mean in the system? Could you clarify that?
Yeah, in the system would be, the payer, and some of the bigger companies, right, are self-insured. So they will hire an administrator who doesn't take any of the risks. They just give the access to the patient to networks, facilities, doctor networks, specialists. And so that's the system that you want to avoid. And in every single large town in this country, there are doctors who've gotten sick of this. They're usually about as old as us. The young guys are figuring it out. But that 20 or 30 years of experience is what it almost really takes. Somebody looks young, like a Doogie Howser. Don't trust Doogie Howser. He hadn't been around long enough. Am I right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Thank you, Greg.
I look like Doogie Howser.
Yeah.
Omar, go ahead, Omar.
Yeah, so I want to leave you with a couple of things. One, we put a lot of eggs in the basket of modern medicine, like Ziad was saying and like Greg was saying. But in reality, what we've discovered is 50% of our health is really in our own hand. The choices that you make every day, what you put in your mouth, how you sleep, how you exercise. 20% is based on the environment around us, the toxins that we eat, breathe, drink. 20% is genetic. But of that 20% in genetics, and these are estimates, right? Some of that is modifiable. Genes can be turned on and off like a light switch, some of them. Like oncogenes. I mean, depending on the milieu that they're in the body, if it's like a high sugar, high insulin state, some of these genes are going to be turned on and produce cancer cells. If they're in a ketotic state, then they're not. They're going to be suppressed. And then 10% is what we do as physicians, really as surgeons, right? So, modern medicine, there's a great deal of knowledge. There's so much great technology. But it's, how people are incentivized or pressured. And, it's all incentivization, right? Not just positive incentives, but also negative incentives to sort of fit in the usual framework. But 10% is based on what we can cut out and heal. So that's one thing I love doing as a surgeon, is being able to take a knife and cure somebody within minutes or hours. The other thing is, we were all raised in the system, but Greg was probably the first among us, out of necessity, I think, to push out. He was just thinking like a cowboy from Texas, and was doing some amazing things, and really did some amazing things. The rest of us are learning from it. But one of the things that I see is when we end up in the hospital, if you don't have an advocate that really knows what's going on, you're in danger of dying. I'm a physician. I was in the hospital. My whole life fell apart probably 5 or 6 years ago. I ended up in the hospital for almost 2 months. And I'd be dead if I wasn't a doctor. I got septic. I knew it was happening. I called the nurse and she said, I was in good shape. She said, all your vital signs are normal. And I said, yeah, because I'm compensating, but I'm septic and I need fluids now. And she said, I'll go get the doctor. The doctor came in. They probably talked out in the hall. We talked to our nurses out in the hall. Talked to the doctor out in the hall. He came in, looked at my vitals, said, your vital signs are fine. Your lactic acid is normal. And I was like, but I'm septic. I can't feel anything from my mid-arms, mid-legs down, and I'm in rigors. And he said, we'll check on you in an hour. And I said, I'll be dead in an hour. I texted a friend of mine who was in his 70s, traditional Dr. Marcus Welby, MD, those kind of guys. He came in, took one look at me. He was at my bedside in 4 minutes, said, I believe you. You're going to the ICU now. And he saved my life. But if I, as a physician, couldn't manipulate the system in a way to save my own life, how much more can you? You need a patient advocate. Now we're moving away from physicians. We're moving towards what we call mid-levels or advanced care providers, NPs and PAs, who are good in their own right, but they just don't have the experience and knowledge that we do as physicians. But now we're being replaced because of cost-cutting measures. I just read an article about that in the ER. Some ERs are completely run without any physicians. If you come in, with trauma or something like that, you need a doc. So patient advocacy If you don't have somebody, find somebody like us. Either have a doctor in the system and one out of the system, or have somebody like me who's in the system and out of the system, who's now transitioned. I don't take any insurance unless I'm in the ER because I'm working for somebody. But when I have my own clients, it's cash basis. One more thing, and I'm going to shut up and let somebody else talk. As physicians, we're trained to give and give and give and give. People look at us and say, you all make so much money, but we are embarrassed to ask for money. I don't know about you. You've probably gotten over it now. I'm starting to get there. But I've given away so much free care. So much of my care for 20 years was based on the underserved and those who were uninsured. And when I was trying to make the switch into a cash system, away from insurance and away from nonprofit, it was hard because I have a hard time. And Ziad knows this. He's always yelling at me. You need to, I'm not going to use the language he uses, but as a minister, but you know what I mean. It's like, but that's the way it has to go. The poor will always be with us. There's a system to catch them, but we are fortunately in a different situation. Get somebody that knows the system that can work outside of it, and you're going to have to pay out of pocket. It's not going to be all insured. And you pay $5,000 for your puppy, you're going to come out of pocket for yourself too.
Thank you very much, Omar.
Okay.
Martin.
So one of the things that I did 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago, is I decided to listen to what was going on. We had patients that were getting sick with COVID after folks would clean and disinfect the room. And I would go in and as the chief medical officer, and they would say, why are these patients getting sick? We disinfected the room. And I'm like, I have no freaking idea. I don't know. I went to medical school. I didn't go to disinfection cleaning school. And what I discovered, and the reason why I'm answering the question this way, is I decided to embark on a completely different journey in life and learn that the majority of the disinfection agents around the world are more harmful than the organisms that they're trying to kill and cure. And that the sticky residues that they're left behind are actually niduses for infection, for growth. And they change the microbiome, as my good friend Eric will tell you, that these chemicals will actually decrease your ability to protect against oncogenetic change. And that, so I launched a company that does green, eco-friendly disinfection, and we're attempting to take over the world in a good way and to eliminate all these harmful chemicals everywhere. So again, that's what I'm trying to do to change.
And somebody that uses these all the time in the OR, it's amazing how we just read the World Health Organization. It's in our policy and procedure stuff. And that stuff, believe it or not, has not been well thought out, right? We don't even think about these residues. This guy's really onto something big.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been also interesting to hear the sort of governmental response with the EPA and everything. And these are safe chemicals that have been approved, and these are chemicals that are green. And you look at the benzene rings and all the forever chemicals in these things that are out there. And I'm like, who said, what is the definition of safe? It doesn't immediately kill you. I mean, that's pretty good, I guess. But
Yeah.
So it's been very eye-opening, and I've had some very high up people, almost threaten, as we've talked about with Omar, and threaten to say that really you shouldn't be doing what you're doing and stay away from that. Ecolab and Clorox and all these places that have a nice grasp on the entire market, $456 billion industry. So, yep, I'm playing with fire. That's what I'm doing.
Well, as Machiavelli used to say, the prince, more challenging than anything in the world is to change the order of things. These are the people who make the real money. The people who change the order of things. The establishment is only here to stop you from doing that. The government is only here to stop you from doing that. They don't want you educated. They don't want you wealthy. They don't want you opinionated. They want you to obey, shut the fuck up, and listen to them. It's all about power, money, and control. At the end of the day, who do you want to have this? You want them to have power, money, and control, or you want to have this? It's all depend on your actions. You can't go and follow all what they say, and then criticize them and bitch and moan that you don't have power, money, and control. You're going to have to fight them. At the end of the day, it's a fight. They either win or you do. It is a zero-sum game. There is no, especially with the governments lately, with Obama and with Biden, etc., they're here to control your life, lock, stock, and barrel. You can't say a word. all with this World Economic Forum, World Health Organization, Klaus Schwab, all this stuff. They said it bluntly. George Soros, you will have nothing, you will have your own nothing, and you will be happy. That's what they want. This is where we're headed. Believe it or not, this is the truth. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not a question of a political thing. This is about power. Who has the power controls the other. So everything you can to challenge them, even the most minute things, like you cannot drink the soda, like you cannot, at what level are we reached? What is next? You cannot eat this, you cannot drive like this, you cannot do soda. And every time you give them, if you give them your finger, they want the hand. If they give them the hand, they want the arm. If you give them the arm, soon they can have everything. And then it's irreversible. Trust me, it's not going to be reversed. So if they win today, the election soon, this is it. We have a one-party thing. It's not political. I'm not talking politics. This is a way of life. This is a lifestyle. They either win or you win. It's war. It is not a zero-sum game. I'm sorry, it is a zero-sum game. This is what they're saying is a microscope of what's really happening out there in the world, because it applies everywhere. In finance, the big Wall Street firms, in fintech, in healthcare, in oil and gas and energy, renewable energy. Remember what Machiavelli said? Challenge, you want to be successful? Do one thing only. All the rest is for the birds. It's a diversion for the stupid population. Changing the order of things. You're going to have to find a way to change the order of things and to gain the power yourself. As long as it's done legally. I'm not advocating any illegal path. You will get your question. Once we're done with them. Keep it. This is a lesson about power and freedom. It all boils down to this. If you don't lose your eyeball on this, on power and freedom, you will get there. Joseph.
Yeah, so I'm just going to kind of go along with what Omar was saying as well. When you're talking about a person, you're just kind of looking at it like an iceberg effect. You see just the top. There's more to that person right below. And spending 10 minutes with your primary care physician, does he know everything about you? The answer is no. It doesn't make sense. You have to ask the whys. So what I did was I helped out with a community paramedicine program. So when patients actually come into the hospital for a specific diagnosis like sepsis or CHF, what we wanted to do was make sure they didn't get readmitted. Why? Because if you get readmitted to the hospital doesn't get paid anymore. So we actually go out and use, we're using APPs, we're using physician advisors, or we're using nurse practitioners, but why don't we use community, the paramedics? They know something about medicine, so let's use them. So that's what we did. We did a ride along with community paramedics, went to these patients' home right afterwards and figured out the reasons why. Why were they coming back within 30 days, 90 days sepsis? Well, you know what? One of them was this lady was diabetic. She said, well, do I pay for my insulin? Do I pay for the antibiotics? Do I pay for gas? Do I pay for, which one is prioritized the most? So it's the iceberg effect. It's like what they also did, why Google Health didn't work, why, the Microsoft company didn't work. They kind of just blanketed the whole system saying that this works for everyone. It doesn't. We have to go more towards personalized medicine. Each person is specifically different. So how can we cater to them? Which medicines work for them? What, why didn't they do that? Is it an ethnic thing? Is it a cultural thing? Is it a religious thing? So it's really down to, let's get to know the person. Let's personalize that medications for them. Let's personalize the outcomes for them.
That's great. Thank you so much, Joseph. Really appreciate it. Okay, I have a question here. Now it comes about money and medicine. Very important. We talked about freedom. We talked about entrepreneurship. Now we talk about money and medicine. So what are the most lucrative yet ethical opportunities in healthcare? How would you advise entrepreneurs to balance profit with the moral imperative to do no harm? It's a balance. You want to do good, but also you want to be profitable. Some doctors are too greedy, are too this, they charge you an arm and a leg, and they don't even provide a service. How do you strike this balance, guys, between doing no harm and making money as doctors, practitioners in the industry? You can start with Martin.
Sure. Sorry, Ziad, you can't make money in medicine. Sorry. No.
Yeah, right.
So some of the most successful folks that are out there making money in medicine are doing it in a very, very unethical way. Corporate medicine is making billions of dollars, and a lot of that is by fraudulently representing infection rates, outcomes. And Greg talked a little bit about some of these fixed trials, et cetera. I think that the number one thing to do is always have the ethical compass pointing northward. Talk and align yourself with healthcare providers that actually have a good ethical reason to do what they're doing. And those are the companies that the money will follow. I mean, innovation that's based on what you can actually make, and that's the starting point, is the worst place to start. Innovation that's going to actually assist in saving lives and educate people and do the right thing, those are the companies that you want to get involved with from the entrepreneurial side of it. The money always follows when you're doing the right thing in regard to healthcare. It is literally the opposite of why the large corporations are making a ton of money, and that's why there's a lot of room and a lot of fields to do the right thing and be very profitable at the same time.
Brilliant. Thank you, Martin. Brilliant.
Yeah. Let's just set this record straight, because as Ziad said, there may be tens or hundreds of thousands of people listening to this, and not just you in this intimate gathering. When it comes to ethics, our colleagues have gone wrong, and I'm looking into the camera and saying our colleagues during the pandemic gave up on what they taught us in medical school. We were taught everything about patient autonomy, that our patients deserve to make the decisions based on their own body. We were told that they deserve informed consent. They needed to know risk, benefits, and alternatives, and we abandoned that. We were taught since medical school that a positive test, whether it's for strep throat or for syphilis or for herpes, doesn't mean you have that. It's just a positive test. These things are interpreted in a clinical setting, and it seemed like our colleagues, and I'm pointing at the camera right now, these guys that are watching us, and we know what you did to our patients, and we are working to make sure that our standard is so far beyond yours that you would be embarrassed to ever try to call us out, because we will come after them, because we know what they did, and we know they're planning on doing it again, because they literally, their whole moral compass is gone. I don't know why they abandoned it, but they did. So when we talk about ethics, we call out that pharma, if we can regrow a new organ, pharma is going to name a number of millions of dollars for regrowing a new organ. Yeah, millions of dollars is what they're going to want. We know that we have the ability right now, and I'm talking about intellectual property that I've worked on. I've handed away intellectual property because I'm afraid of what they would do to me with me having solved the issue of organ regeneration. And by solved, what I mean is my work has been duplicated. I won't touch that. Now, what I will do is I've done some tissue work on resizing tissue, because as Omar would tell you, surgeons love to pull things out, move things around, and there are things that I can do that are well within the mainstream that I can make a lot of wealth on. But I'm not going to touch the thing that literally would put me in the Mississippi River. So I've sold that off, okay? It's not available for capital. If you guys are interested, I might tell you where to go. But that's the difference in our ethics and theirs. We still respect patients. We're trying to do something for them that could be tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, not millions of dollars. And we don't, for the record, like human trafficking of organs. We know that wealthy people around the world can get an organ, and somebody dies for that organ. And for the record, we're against that.
Thank you, Greg. That's awesome, man. Awesome.
Well, let's talk about real numbers, just sort of get granular here. The GDP this year is what, 22 trillion, roughly. 20% of that is spent on healthcare in the United States. Let's just say 4 trillion. And most of that, when you look at traditional medicine, I mean, these hospitals, these pharma companies, these device companies, these insurance companies, are making millions and billions of dollars. I mean, they get fined by the federal government several $100 million, and it's a drop in the bucket. They don't even blink when they write the check. The CEOs are making $30 million plus stock options and everything else of these big companies. And you know the companies I'm talking about. So the money's there, right? I mean, we're spending $4 trillion a year, but yet we're getting poor results with traditional medicine. So what do we need to do? I mean, the opportunities are amazing, and they're exponential, and they're growing with people like Peter Diamandis, who is a partner with Elon Musk and SpaceX and 360, A360 and other things, because they're thinking in different ways. So when we look at Elon Musk, how's he making most of his money? Did he do something different with SpaceX? I mean, NASA's been doing it for decades. What's he done? He's done it better, faster, cleaner, cheaper. And look at what he's doing. I mean, for the first time in history, and everybody's pointing at him and thinking, I mean, this guy's a genius. And he is. The same opportunities are available in medicine. We can take the same things that are being delivered now and do them better and faster and more efficiently and prettier and cheaper. One thing that is very important is, you know, it's a very narrow margin in traditional medicine, but they make the margins huge, right? But it's really a volume game. And the volume's there. I mean, everybody needs medical care of some sort. People just don't trust traditional medicine anymore. So it's shifting into alternative medical routes. But there's still great science back there behind it. And I just want to say, don't believe everything you see on the internet. There's so many people on the internet that are self-taught. There's one guy that just drives me crazy. I don't know why. I think my phone hears me say his name.
I know
and
who
then,
you're talking about.
Then it pops up all the time. And I'm like, he's driving me nuts. He calls himself a human biologist. And he's always saying stuff like, insulin doesn't have anything to do with glucose control. And, you know, the body makes its own water. You don't need to really drink water. And all these weird things. I mean, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
But he's very compelling. He's making millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, don't believe everything you see on the internet. Research it. Talk to somebody who actually knows. Look at experts and get unbiased opinions. But the opportunities there now are in medical care delivery outside of the traditional system with like things like we're doing, things that are faster. I mean, what he's doing, for example, with autologous stem cells derived from your own body to cure arthritic joints and other types of diseases and spinal cord degeneration and things like this. You're not going to find that anywhere else. Stuff like that. So,
and I would say we are fortunate enough to have a lot of cases of long-term remission.
yeah, I mean, it's amazing.
I don't use the cure word.
Okay, we'll move to Joseph because I have a very important question.
I'm taking up a lot of time.
Last question. Go ahead, Joe.
Trying to understand this, I go from the population health perspective. I look at underserved areas. I looked at rural health. And so from my perspective is how can we afford some of these things? It's very difficult. I mean, if you're having a patient who's saying, you know what, I can only afford, you know, this insulin or I can only afford this certain medicine, but I have to pay for my car, I got to pay for electricity. It's very hard to kind of go in that direction. So it's tough.
All right, I want to ask you a question. I wasn't intending to ask you the question, but it came up to my mind right now, since we're talking about money and medicine and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate, Omar, you went through the granular thing. So the question is, let's say we're doing a competition here to choose from the four of you who would be the best candidate. I'm not going to say who the best candidate is. It's up to the audience to determine this. Each one of you is given $100 million cash. Given your expertise in this space, where would you today invest $100 million cash in your area of expertise? And why? This is basically, at the end of the day, this is the bottom line. You can throw at me, Joseph, any number you want. Doesn't mean shit. How do you monetize this? Based on all the research, on all the expertise and the experience you have. How do you monetize $100 million cash? 2, goal. Number 1, get more freedom. Number 2, make really obscene money. Number 3, piss off the establishment. Number 4, give it the opportunity one day to be bought out by one of these morons in the establishment at a multiple of 10 or 20 times. That's how you would have fucked them, made good, made money, made a difference. This is your legacy. How would you allocate this money? Each one of you. Any one of you can start. This was not in my program, but I think this is going to determine everything. And this is going to show people how to think once you have the expertise, the money, in times like this, in days like this. Go ahead.
So just take your top 5 inflammatory diseases. That's what all those MABs do that you see on the commercials: arthritis, asthma, lupus. Okay, you could, with that money, within 6 months, you could get
Not 6 months, any time.
Okay, so within 6 months to a year, you could get 200 patients with each of those conditions, and your data would beat pharma so far. They would do everything they could to buy that from you, and it would force them to on their hand of actual cell therapy.
Yeah, but the question is, what's the sales cycle to get 200 clients?
Yeah,
So it's
Omar,
much more than 6
So-
months to a year.
so I'm gonna jump in.
I'm trying to put it into.
I got you.
Thanks, Omar.
All right.
But you're going to finish my business plan out, aren't you?
No,
you
I have my
you-
own. I know what I'm doing. 6 to 12 months to profitability, and the practice patterns have already been out there with internet marketers like Brendan Burchard and others that you guys know. And then some of my friends have done amazing things like Daniel Pompa, Isaac Jones, and all that. They're chiropractors. Daniel went from nothing to $100 million in 4 years, and he's crushing it. So it's all about volume and engaging. The market's there. You guys want good health. You want to live long. You want to live without disease or pain or fear. And we have the ability to do it. He's doing some amazing things with regards to regenerative medicine and therapeutics. What I have is not just therapeutics, but also diagnostics. So I've spent the past 15 years on pre-diagnosing disease. Disease isn't, you're not a heart patient because you have a heart attack today. Now all of a sudden you're a heart patient. You've been a heart patient for 20 years, you just haven't known it. And I can diagnose that 10 to 15 years before you have your heart attack. Before there's any plaque in your primary coronary vessels that are on the surface, I can tell you that you have disease inside your myocardium with small vessel disease based on protocols looking at, well, we won't get into the details. So anyway, it's developing the marketing and the advertising, and it's the pattern's there. It's been done. It's not recreating the wheel. It's done. We just have to make the application to healthcare. And then taking this 2-year program that I've developed over the past 15 years of diagnostics, spreading it out to millions of people, making it available not just for those people who are going to pay me $50,000 or $100,000 a year, but for people who have to pay less, we can make it available through education. Then using his therapeutics to take care of people that have these chronic pain syndromes and spinal cord injuries and other things. So give me $100 million, I'll have you a gigantic model built that's functional and making tons of money in 6
I love it. What about you, Martin?
Pretty good job, guys. Not too bad. But here's what we're going to do. So you take the $100 million and you cut up into a couple geographic regions. Let's pick West Virginia as a good example of one state, and then probably New York. And you look at, number one, how much money was lost over the last 5 years with healthcare-associated infections, healthcare-associated conditions that over the course of time in the United States last year was like $52 billion that was lost from hospitals and from reimbursement. And what you do is you cut these models up. You have eco-friendly green products. I know a company that's doing some work in that area. And then you hire only physicians that are ethically driven, that are not part of a large corporation. You cut that up, then you create models. That model becomes a huge financial benefit, not only because of the money saved with healthcare-associated infections, but satisfaction, good patient outcomes. Then you do a 6-month JAMA article that is not bought or paid off by someone else. And then that becomes a reproducible model that within a year will not only be money-making, but it'll spread throughout the entire country. And then each state will decide who of their local entrepreneurs want to invest in that particular region, and then off it goes.
Brilliant. Joseph, last but not least.
Yeah, I don't have an absolute great plan, but from my perspective, 1 out of 10 Americans are diabetic. So I want to get insulin out there. If I can get that for free for everywhere, it's like what Canada is doing right now. I mean, they're actually giving insulin out pretty much for free for the whole country. So I'd want to address that.
Can I help, Joe? Can I help, Joe?
Yeah.
So
please,
if he
of
gives
course
all
you
the
can.
insulin out, what he does is he gets the insurance companies to say that every state where that insulin was given to that degree, basically becomes a model for insurance companies to give decreased premiums and increased reimbursement for every place that has that free insulin, because they're going to decrease healthcare visits. And that's how it makes
Can I
some
help
money.
Martin and Joe?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so I would get rid of the insulin and actually have people cured from their diabetes by lifestyle changes,
I love
weight
this.
loss, things like that.
I
And
love
then for
this.
those who have type 1 and other things with pancreatic injury, I'd send them to him and have him give them stem cells.
Okay, so the bottom line, the way I look
I'll
at
buy
it.
him out.
He's on Shark Tank.
So the bottom line, the way I look at it, then I leave the questions to the audience. We're gonna have them, I'll give them opportunity to talk. You join forces. You're very complimentary. That's $400 million. Greg goes for innovation. Omar and Martin goes for execution. And Joseph goes for research, gathering intel. You gather first-rate intel. You share it with the guys who are going to execute on that intel, and share it with the person who's going to go on the innovation, avant-garde, state-of-the-art technology, which you guys can execute on with the money and with the resources. I think you should think about it. You together are not 4, are 40. Because of the multiplier effect, the resources, the experience, the expertise you have. Anyway, that's my opinion.
Help us raise the money.
Yeah, of course.
What if you can't get along with Greg?
No, you will have to get along with Greg. There's no way. You'll have to get along with Greg. Anyway, I'll leave it to the audience, to ask their questions. And then we can call it off. Yeah, hold on. Let's start with Stan.
Friends, I have to tell you I'm not happy with your answer. What I'm hearing is micro solutions to macro problems.
Right.
We've just spent 6 months together working on a healthcare white paper, and I haven't heard squat from you about
The
how to
national
solve
survey and-
the problems. You haven't told us how to solve the problems. What about national healthcare surveys? What about telemedicine in rural areas? What about the real solutions to the problems that America is having? Greg, I don't care about your practice. I hope you're very successful, but we need to help America and not your practice. And the same is true for all of you. So far your answers are disappointing. So I would like to challenge each of you to give me, if I were to make you the chief czar of medicine in the United States, what would be the
Okay, enough said. We got it.
There's
There's no need to comment all this stuff. It's fine. The message is loud and clear, and it's very fair. So each one of you, please, how would you resolve the problem, American problems in healthcare in general? We talked about the micro, which is very important. But also, we didn't talk about the macro, which Stan refers to, and which is also a very valid point. You know, we can't cover all questions in one thing, Stan. But this is a fair question. Go ahead.
So, Stanford, very good point. We did spend quite many months trying to create a very large, inclusive white paper to give a roadmap for a legislative change that could lead to the macro changes that you're recommending. So I think the answer that you're looking for is that everyone should purchase and read the white paper, and so they understand what it is that's involved, and assist in lobbying to get this group to actually be the group that makes healthcare changes at a national level.
And by the way, the white paper will be available on the website in the next week to 10 days, where you can access it, read the short version of the white paper, which is 22 pages, or the long version, 150 pages of the white paper, which we spent an enormous amount of time, like 6 months, trying to put together this white paper under Stan's leadership, on that. So, look, you have to read, you have to do your homework, you have to start doing your homework. You're not going to learn any of that we discussed, macro or micro, by reading the New York Times or anything like that. So this is what I strongly recommend you to do. Be an active visitor to the website, because all this information, all this intel is shared with you. Not just events, blogs, podcasts, articles, op-eds, everything. So, Omar, you want to add something, please?
Yeah, so I think the three primary legs that healthcare stands on are access, cost, and quality, and there are problems in each of those. With regards to access, we're building out a huge army of advanced practice providers, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, but we are failing in the education of physicians. Those are regulated, the residency slots are regulated by Medicare, by the US Congress. We need to increase the number of physicians that are being trained. We don't have enough physicians. We are training, we have probably somewhere less than 1 million physicians for the entire country right now that are actively practicing.
That's it?
That's it. It needs to be double. A few years ago, it was 650,000. It's grown, it's probably around 800 right now. We do need to focus on quality, but what we've seen is more and more regulatory issues that are hampering the actual practice of medicine. And it's not about more paperwork, it's not about more regulations, it's not about, I mean, just this, for example, Phillips 66 said basically they're quitting oil production in one of their areas in Los Angeles in California because the governor just signed more regulatory issues for oil production in California. They're like, we're done, we're out. Same thing with healthcare. Many doctors are just saying, we're done. There are too many regulations. We can't be physicians anymore. Costs, they're exorbitant. I mean, you go to an ER. I went to an ER because I had the flu and I just wanted a flu test. I couldn't find one. They didn't listen to anything I said. I got a bill for like, I don't know what it was, 20 grand for 4 hours there for a bag of IV fluids and some Tylenol. And it's, it's insane. And I refused to pay it because I wanted to be seen by the doc. The PA saw me and I was like, the doctor billed me and I was like, I didn't even see him. So I wrote them and they canceled it. But anyway, cost, quality, and access. I'm working with an AI company actually here in Manhattan called Fabric Labs. We're building platforms for virtual telehealth care. It's amazing what we're doing with artificial intelligence. I didn't really understand it till now. We're actually writing it, seeing the code, seeing how it's written, seeing the logic behind it. And it's not that hard, but it is quite amazing. So I think the answer to rural healthcare really is telehealth platforms that enable people wherever they are throughout the world to be able to access good quality healthcare.
Thank you, Omar. Okay, any other question? Yes, Anthony.
So you guys talked very briefly on how the entire industry, from the top down, would you say a lot of the issues stem from where students are being forced into medical schools that aren't promoting the right way of teaching medicine, and how would you, as doctors, officiate that change to make sure that we can get there?
They're not being trained to be doctors anymore. They're being trained to be robots, and a big part of their training is all DEI. I mean, diversity, equity, inclusion. It's all about feelings and let's not offend people. It's not about true medicine. And it started changing in around 2000 when the Institute of Medicine decided to decrease the amount of training hours that they were allowed to do. So when we were in medical school, you didn't go home. I mean, we were in the hospital on trauma rotations for 3 days without sleep. We'd sleep in the OR. I mean, now you can't have more than 80 hours a week, which like the Army Rangers, I mean, you're averaging 4 hours of sleep a night for 9 weeks. It's the same, it should be the same thing in surgical training. I mean, it's not increasing. Look at the error rates now versus back then. So start training doctors again.
Unbelievable. Okay, next.
So some of you may know that I'm a big trailblazer for women's health, in particular sexual health. Me personally, I'm in the age where I'm going through a shift, and it's really challenging even for me, with the knowledge I have, to get the care that I can technically get from my insurance company. But how do you guys handle that with the women that come in that aren't going to deal with what they get with their typical traditional gynecologist who's looking for relief?
Well, I'll jump into that because I want to define for the group what she means by sexual health, because some of you guys don't know what she's talking about. It just sounds like she's getting a little bit edgy, right? So what she means is a very important part of intimacy in all relationships is what happens in the bedroom, and without it, relationships just don't flourish. And so women in particular, but men too, have their issues, and they have to do with just basically pain and dryness and things just not working, and then that's sort of connected to the head, and they're miserable. Okay, all of it's connected, and we absolutely have two mechanisms that are non-surgical that have been a salvation for women, and they're not offered. There's some small molecule drugs approved by pharma that are effective. There's some regenerative technologies that just are a simple blood draw from the patient and in one day injected in the right place, so drug-free, that will overnight change a lot of that. and then there's hormone replacement. And the reason I mentioned hormone replacement is every single person in this room, I'm looking at your ages, you should be talking to your doctor about hormone replacement. It is absolutely one of the most powerful mechanisms there are. The doctors are starting to wake up around the country about hormone replacement that they abandoned for a while for some technical, difficult reasons to understand. And since this guy is in that space, you want to say an amen to any of that?
Amen. You've covered it. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Okay, next, yes, David.
So you're saying the healthcare system in the U.S. is failing, right? If given the opportunity.
Failing is an understatement.
I know, it's bullshit. I can't afford healthcare as an unemployed person or someone that's an entrepreneur unless I'm making a certain bracket of money. So I completely understand that. So if this system in the West is failing, right, can you guys build a better system if given an opportunity? All right. So then I think instead of trying to compete with people in the big fish here, right, I think it might be better to go to a region that's developing and build a system there and beat out the American healthcare system. The same way Elon Musk beat out, NASA with SpaceX and innovated and then brought himself in here, I think maybe the U.S. healthcare system needs to fail, right? And we drive the failure of that system to make sure that, it benefits Americans in the long run. Because if you could do it better in a different country than the U.S., it's going to
We
get
can build
under
it here.
the U.S. skins. Huh?
Competitive. I mean, competition, capitalism. Build
Exactly.
it
So we need to
alongside.
create capitalism on a global scale, right? So I think that might be a potential solution.
So
Yeah, but it's going to take tons of time, to train the people, to find the infrastructure. It's going to take tons of time.
yeah, so
And then by that time, the US will be also at an advantage. Yeah, you have a big, I don't know, I'm not an expert on the healthcare industry, but this is business, and it's easier said than done. But go ahead, please.
So yeah, so Hickham's dictum says that two things can be true at the same time, and so one of them is the system is broken. The training of doctors and nurse practitioners and having that force be in place is one of them. But it's not just broken; it's also at the same time it's rigged, and the rigging part of it can be fixed fairly quickly. And I think that's what it needs to be. There's just incentives in place that don't make any sense. The data is there to show that we're supporting things financially that we should not be, and that can be fixed pretty quickly.
Yeah, but also you have to take into account, it's not just a question of fixed or broken. It's corrupt to the core. And there's no place you can make money in healthcare more than the US, because it's the most corrupt country in the world, for sure. And this is what drives people. It's the incentive, the greed, the incentive to make more money, to hide, to cheat, to lie, to everything. This is really what's helping us to always be like this. It's the go on. Same thing in politics, same thing in business, same thing everywhere. This is why we are where we are. It's the corruption.
So just another little addition to your question, and it was mentioned here a few times, the training of doctors. We had an opportunity a few years ago to buy a charter to an offshore medical school. And the concept was to actually train docs to be the physicians that it took us 10, 20 years to figure out that we actually already were, and actually train physicians to be those docs. And so that's another concept to actually purchase one or several medical schools and or change the curriculum at the medical school so that you actually graduate physicians that have an awareness of naturopathic, an awareness of other alternatives, and all the things that we know now about the broken aspect of healthcare.
But also, we always compare everything to the US. We're not the center of the world.
No, we're not.
So this hubris of we are it, we're not it anymore. We fucked in every single way. We make people believe that we are it. We're not. There has to be radical changes in America so that we are it. So when you say about going to other countries and doing it, you don't have to compete yourself with the US. If we're a bit above the average in Saudi or Kuwait or Dubai, for example, I've been to Dubai a lot of time. If we are a bit above average, you can make tons of millions of dollars. And you're just a bit above the average. Why do you have to compare yourself to the US? What do I care about the US? If I'm there having a monopoly with a bunch of real smart people over a certain sector in healthcare in Dubai, you can charge them triple. They will pay it without discussion. Nobody's going to regulate you on that. Good. On the contrary, attract all people from Europe and the Middle East. Why do we always have to compare ourselves to the US? We don't. We just don't.
Omar, can you speak more about patient advocacy for personal health and then in the business setting? Just to share, in my previous experience in hotels, some of the corporations I used to work for, I was a lone voice speaking to some of my leaders on questions that arose in 2020. So it came down to me, the individual, to advocate that in the business setting. But then in the public and the private setting, like where do you go for how do you find that person that you can trust? And then number three, just to share, a colleague of mine, she ran for office here in New York City and would be the mayor right now if more of my political friends backed her up. She was running against Jumanji Williams. Now getting into Abdelnour city, we would have a doctor as a mayor if we had our fucking act together, excuse me. But we need more of what I think you're talking about when you're on your deathbed. People that can come to your aid at the moment of truth to fix what's broken. But if you don't know who they are, we don't need.
And it's so hard to find, especially for people who aren't in the field. So, a lot of hospitals have patient advocates, but they're hospital employees and they work for the hospital. And they're really risk reduction agents. They really don't have the patient's best interest at heart. They have the hospital's best interest at heart. And the only way I know to engage somebody like that is to find a personal physician that you trust who will be your advocate, or a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant who has the ability to go into those situations and be your advocate. What happens is a lot of these hospitals will shut those people down. Even if they accompany you to the hospital, they'll shut them down because they're not part of the hospital staff. So you have to have somebody that I think has a foot in both worlds, a foot outside and inside, who's respected, who's accepted, and who can serve as your advocate and be listened to. So it's a hard place.
Next. Yes, Eric.
So you mentioned doing your own research, and we're talking about basically the failure, not entire failure, but the failure of traditional medicine and the ways being prescribed. What are your thoughts on the recent wave of alternative medicines like peptides or other things along those lines that are starting to hit mainstream now?
Fantastic. Do you want to? Yeah, peptides, they're amazing. But here's what I tell my private patients. There's no magic bullet. The magic bullet are those three primary legs of health, and that is rest and recovery, sleep, good nutrition, great nutrition, and exercise. Unless you have those things nailed down, it doesn't matter what else you do, red light therapy, cryo plunges, whatever else, you got to get those things nailed down. And then those other things will help, those supplements, those peptides, et cetera. Yeah, they might make you feel good. They might make you look good. You might be able to take your shirt off on the beach and flex, but inside you might be dying, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, whatever else. You got to nail those three things down: sleep, nutrition, exercise, and then peptides are amazing. They can solve a lot of problems. Weight issues, sexual function, joint muscle gain, whatever. So I fully believe in them, but there's no magic bullet.
Thank you, Omar. Well,
as an undergraduate student studying medicine, what would you say, well, I'm striving to become a doctor and not a corporate slave. What would you say is the top thing I can keep in my mind and strive to achieve in my studies?
I cannot answer that question as I'm very biased as to Logan's well-being. So.
Listen, I would just say, when physicians had margin, we volunteer taught. We just welcomed all the training doctors, the professors were in it for the right reasons. Now you have very few voluntary faculty. So you're going to find quality faculty, but it's a lot harder, and you just need to just squeeze out every opportunity you can. But at the end of the day, you have to learn on your own. But it's never been easier to learn on there's this thing called YouTube. You're kind of young, but I'll tell you about it sometime.
Thank you.
Learn the skills, learn the knowledge, chunk the other stuff.
I would travel.
Shadow your dad.
Yeah.
And what I would suggest too, I think in this day and time, every MD should come with an MBA. Get a business education too.
most important thing, where are you? Listen to your father.
He's not going to, Ziad. I believe Eric Celedonio has a question.
Yeah, this question is actually for Omar, because you mentioned the 3 pillars, and I think they're great, but what I found is that most physicians are woefully uninformed on nutrition, especially, to just name one. And, you know, if you follow the lifestyle of some physicians, you'd be appalled. You know, what would you say from a nutritional perspective? Because it seems like most of the tools that physicians leverage are prescriptions or surgery, right? And I think that's created some level of distrust. And that's probably one of the issues that people distrust the medical system, because I don't think medication are really the answer. So what would you do to improve some of the more holistic elements that he spoke of in medical school training? Because I think that's part of the issue. And if you go downstream just a little bit, or actually upstream a little bit, I think big ag, big food, and big pharma have big plays in this, because the food we eat, it's adulterated, it's contaminated, there's issues with it when you compare it to food produced in Europe and other places. We don't have the same standards. And I think that contributes significantly to health. And we're not doing much about it. So there's a twofold question there. But number one, what would you do to increase the sort of nutritional exposure in medical school, or some of the other holistic elements you spoke of? And then what do we do about this big food, big ag issue, which is probably foundational to public health? And honestly, one of the major issues that I don't think is being spoken about, and it's maybe not covered in this isn't the right forum for it, but worth bringing up.
Our nutrition courses in med school are primarily biochemical nutrition, right? So we're learning about, you know, fat metabolism, protein metabolism, et cetera. But we don't really learn about nutrition. But even nutritionists aren't learning about good nutrition. The food supply in the United States is contaminated with processed foods, chemicals, all these sort of things, Monsanto, et cetera. Plus, the good farmers and all that are being incentivized and pressured to not produce. So I think you have to go back to sort of growing some of your own stuff, going to farmers markets and finding local farmers and ranchers that you trust. Finding good, like, you know, Butcher Box I think is great. There are others out there as well. When I was teaching, I was a professor at the University of Tennessee College of Medicine as well as at Vanderbilt. But one of the residents I taught is now flourishing, doing amazing things. His name is Dr. Ken Berry. I don't know if you know Ken Berry. Yeah, he's fantastic. So into carnivore, into good nutrition, the perfect human diet, he calls it, and it's fantastic. So, you know, follow some of these guys that know science. Don't follow some of these fly-by-night guys that have no background. Sometimes, you know, like a blind squirrel to find an acorn. But follow guys like Ken Berry and like others. So nutrition is key. You know, go through your pantry, get rid of everything that is in a bag or a box. Whole foods, single ingredient. Ken talks about, Dr. Berry talks about, you know, meat, butter, eggs, and bacon. That's it. And, you know, if you have no sugar and no carbs, then that's not dangerous for you.
Yeah, so Omar's a big tent guy. He was talking about the value of the nurse practitioners and the PAs to us. It goes broader than that. Even naturopathic doctors, chiropractors, Dr. Hollis, I met him earlier today. Find somebody that focuses on good care. It doesn't matter what their specialty is or what their training is. If they're in healthcare, you can find the ones that are really good. They all bring something to the table. And where the MDs are deficient with nutrition, some of these other folks bring it in. And it's not the nutritionists. As a general rule, the nutritionists seem to be bought and sold. So that's my big tent
For example, I was flying here today from Nashville. The guy sitting next to me is 75 years old. He's had type 1 diabetes his whole life. So he was taking insulin. So he said, excuse me, he ate some snacks, pushed insulin in his belly, and then got out a big bag of potato chips, some Reese's peanut butter cups. And I said, aren't you diabetic? He said, yeah, but I took my insulin. I mean, and these nutritionists say, you know, as long as you take the insulin, you're going to be okay. You know, you just count your carbs. But it's awful. I mean, even the nutritionists don't know nutrition.
Well, it kind of goes to your critique of peer review process, because if you follow the peer review process from beginning to end, it always results in the promotion of some product. It results in a pill or something that's monetized. And I think some of these things aren't monetizable, and that's why they're not getting the airtime that they deserve, like you just pointed out.
Yeah, Miranda?
I actually had a comment question about how supplements are actually more dangerous than pharmaceutical drugs to a certain degree, because they're not FDA approved, especially here in America, or Santé Canada. or the European Union. And we don't know what's in those supplements, and they're being pushed by naturopathic doctors, holistic doctors. So I think that a lot of people that become, let's say, mesmerized by the supplement industry they can be ingesting like arsenic. They can be ingesting.
You have to do your research. There's some that are great, like pure encapsulations are great. Thorn, great. There's some that are off market that, you got to watch, but there's some that are solid.
Right, and I think, Dr. Hollis, who's in the audience, when I first got out of residency, I started a hospitals program in rural Vermont. And I was told that there was a doctor in the community who's a naturopathic physician, and he wanted to be able to admit his patients to the hospital. And so I said, I'd love to meet this fellow. So I met him, and I learned a lot. I mean, willow tree is where we get aspirin from, and little things like that. And there were patients that I couldn't manage, I couldn't control, and I would refer them to him, and we would share that. So the whole concept of saying anything is all good and all bad, similar to prescriptions being the answer for everything, we would be without any tools as physicians if we didn't have medicines to be able to treat things like hypertension, like diabetes. It's very important to combine good, healthy lifestyle habits and also the input of other subspecialists and other alternative therapies where we fail: acupuncture, naturopathy, holistic, and supplementation, as long as it's done in a way that it's education and evidence-based.
All right, thank you so much. So I'd like to thank you all for your presence. I hope this has been inspirational. We hope to see you regular at our future events. They will be announced soon. You are all on our mailing list. Have a fantastic evening.